Today we are going to discuss the last chapter for class 11, that is plant growth and development. And this chapter begins with a very common word you have heard so many times in biology since your very lower of classes, and that is growth. All of you know that growth is the fundamental basic attribute of life, right? And every organism, every living organism grows. Okay, so growth is a very important and basic characteristics of life. Now, how do we define growth? See, growth is defined as an irreversible permanent increase in the size, volume or weight of an organ or part or even of an individual cell of an organism. Okay, so growth is going to be present in both multicellular as well as unicellular organism, because even the minute amount of cellular level growth as well is going to, or increase is going to be referred as growth. Now, it is associated with high degree of metabolic activities, both anabolic and catabolic processes. You know that growth occurs due to metabolic reactions going on inside the cell continuously. These particular reactions can be of two types. Anabolic means the building up reactions and catabolic means the breakdown reactions, right? Do remember, only when the amount of anabolic processes will be more than the catabolic processes inside the cell, growth will occur. Okay, only when anabolic building up reactions will be more than the catabolic processes, only then growth will occur. Okay, so plant growth, on the other hand, because it is plant growth and development we are talking about specifically in this chapter. So plant growth is indeterminate or unlimited due to the presence of meristems. Do remember, in case of when we talk about growth, in case of plants and animals, the pattern of growth that they show will be very much different. In plants, because there is this meristems present in the plant body, that's why these meristems, which are in continuous division state, they continuously divide and they will add up cells to the plant body. That's how they will make the cells or the growth of the plant to be unlimited. This unlimited growth pattern seen in plant is also known as open form of growth. On the other hand, in animals, there will be no continuous growth taking place throughout their life. That's why we say that growth in animals will be definite or limited in nature. Okay. Now, when meristems cease to divide, like continuously meristems will divide, fine, but then the cells that are going to form the meristems, after a point of time, even they will stop to divide. What will happen then? Then they will differentiate to form permanent cells. When the meristems will cease to divide, these cells now will take up a specific shape and will start to perform a specific function. Specific shape occurring and specific, function performing. These two things together is called differentiation. When a cell takes up a specific shape to perform a specific function, we call it differentiation. And differentiated cells are also called permanent cells. They form the body of the plant. Like there are so many different types of, permanent cells present in the plant body, like parenchyma cell. Their fixed function is that they store food, they do storage. Likewise, there are cholenchyma cells which will be providing flexibility, elasticity to the plant body. Sclerenchyma will be also present, they will provide mechanical support. So these are all permanent cells or permanent tissues in the plant body doing some specific job, and for that they also have a specific shape. Okay. Now, growth is measurable and can be done using various parameters like length, volume, fresh weight or dry weight, cell size, surface area, etc. We can measure the growth in the plant from various different parameters. Like if you check the surface area increase in the leaf of a plant, or if you see the lengthwise increase in the height of the plant, all of that can allow you to understand or estimate the growth of a plant. But if you ask me that out of all these different parameters that I have mentioned here, which is the most important or which is the most appropriate one will be the length of the plant. If you can observe the increase in length of the plant, that is the definite way of understanding the growth occurring in the plant body. And for that, we also have an instrument by which, using which you can, appropriately study or you can estimate the increase in length of the plant body, and that is called oxanometer. Okay, out of all this parameter, length is the most appropriate one and is measured using oxanometer. Alright, that is a basic introduction to the chapter. Now let us start something very, very important for your exam, and that is growth rate. Okay. Now what is growth rate? First thing. See, increase in growth per unit time is called growth rate. Increase in growth per unit time is called growth rate. Now growth rate observed can be of two types. Okay. First thing is arithmetic growth rate and then geometric growth rate. Now arithmetic growth rate is a simple demonstration of arithmetic growth rate is observed in this diagram. You can see this is the parental cell which is dividing to form two daughter cells. Out of the two daughter cells, only one is continuing to divide. It is going to continue the division process. The other one will get differentiated, or it will become permanent, so it will stop dividing. Alright, again out of the two cells formed from this particular cell, again out of these two you see this will become differentiated, only this one will continue to divide. So what is happening is that every time with every passing generation, only one cell is being added to the plant body because one of the cell is stopping to divide, right? So with every passing generation, one cell is getting increased in the plant body. So this is a very slow and gradual form of growth observed in various plant parts like the roots. Okay, the root and every other plant part will be growing, or it will be demonstrated by arithmetic growth rate. Because arithmetic growth rate is going to be gradual and a very slow form of a growth, if you try to demonstrate it with a graph, you will find that arithmetic growth rate will give you a linear growth curve. Okay, and the equation to arithmetic growth rate is LT equal to L0 plus RT, where LT is the length at time t, L0 is length at initial length, R is the growth rate, and T of course is time. Alright. Now try to compare this arithmetic growth rate with geometric growth rate. Geometric growth rate is different. Here you can see that once a cell starts to divide, both the daughter cells will continue to divide. None of them have stopped dividing. So this will be further dividing. Likewise, this will also divide. Again, all these four cells will further divide. So from number 1, it is becoming 2, then 4, then 8. Likewise, it will keep increased. The number of cells will keep increasing. So with every passing generation, the number of cells will simply double up during geometric growth rate. Okay, seasonal activities in the plant and every kind of a growth as such will be showing geometric growth pattern. To understand geometric growth pattern in a much more better way, you can also study the microbial, culture media. In a culture media where microbes or bacteria grow, every bacterial cell will divide with every passing 20 minutes, because 20 minutes is a typical generation time for a bacterial cell to divide, right? So that's why every 20 minutes a bacterial cell will divide. So the bacterial population will keep doubling up with every passing 20 minutes. Every generation, the number of cells that are present, they all will double up. Okay, so every passing generation, the number of cells will simply keep doubling up. Fine. So that is called geometric growth rate. In geometric growth rate, because the number of cells are simply doubling up with every passing generation, the graph that is obtained for such a growth will be called a sigmoid growth curve, S-shaped growth curve. Okay, sigmoid growth curve consists of 3 distinct phases. Lag phase, when the growth is very, very slow and it's just about to begin. Then suddenly the growth will suddenly steep up. It will suddenly speed up, and we call this particular part of growth, when the growth is very much faster, when the number of cells are simply doubling up, that part is called log phase or exponential phase, because here the growth is occurring exponentially, and eventually the growth will slow down and it will come to a stable state. We call it stationary phase. Okay, so sigmoid growth curve consists of 3 phases: lag phase, log phase and stationary phase. Okay, So for such a growth, again, the growth equation is also going to occur exponentially. So here the growth equation will be W1, where W is weight. W1 is equal to W0 e to the power RT. W1 here is going to be the final weight, W0 is the initial weight, E is the base of natural log, R is growth rate, and T of course will be time. Fine. So I hope all of you are clear, and you can also compare how this arithmetic growth rate differs from geometric growth rate, right? Now also there is another form of growth rate that can be that can estimate the comparison between growth rate of two plants. If you want to measure and also compare between the growth occurring in two distinct biological systems, you can then use the parameters instead of arithmetic and geometric. You can use the parameters of absolute growth rate and relative growth rate. Okay, let me give you an example. Suppose these are two plants A and B, and we are going to use here surface area to estimate the growth rate of these two plants. So surface area of the leaf is used here as the parameter. So suppose at time t, plant A had the surface area 5 centimeters square, and after a particular fixed amount of time being passed, the surface area of the leaf has now become 10 centimeters square. Okay? For plant B, initially it was 50 centimeters square, and after a fixed amount of time, the same interval of time being passed, the surface area now has become 55 centimeters square. Okay? Now see, what is absolute growth rate? Absolute growth rate means simply the total growth taking place per unit time. It has nothing to do with the initial parameter of the plant. Okay? It is simply total growth per unit time. Okay? So absolute growth rate, if you count for both the plants, it is from 5 to 10. From 5 centimeters square, it has become 10 centimeters square. So total growth, how much has taken place? Is only 5. 5 units of growth has taken place. Also for plant B also the same thing. From 50 it has become 55 centimeters square. So the total amount of growth is 5 units, right? Now see the relative growth rate. Relative growth rate is growth per unit time, fine, but it is also dependent on initial size. So the formula for relative growth rate is growth per unit time divided by initial size into 100. So if you use this particular formula to estimate the relative growth rate for plant A and B, see for A how much will it be? Growth per unit time is 5, initial size is also 5 into 100, right? And for plant B, or 5 by 50, initially it was 50 into 100. So how much are you getting it to be? It is 100%, and here it is only 10%, isn't it? So see, even if absolute growth rate between plant A and B is the same, relative growth rate, where you are also taking into consideration the initial size, you can see how much of huge difference in the growth rate both these plants possess. Okay, for plant A it is 100%, and for plant B it is only 10%. That means what? By relative growth rate, you are also able to understand that which particular plant has more capacity to grow. Okay, so plant A of course has much more capacity to grow in comparison to plant B. Okay, so this being said, I hope all of you are clear about this part. Now next, let us discuss regarding development.